everyone, welcome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tanya Hertz, and I am Professor of Entrepreneurship at San Diego State University and San Diego Miramar College, and then I'm also Director of the San Diego Miramar College Rec Innovation Lab. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is how we actually identify who our early adopters are in the customer discovery process of the lean startup methodology. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you, and we'll be going through some slides on identifying those early adopters. Now, we do this as part of, you can do this anytime as part of the exploration of a business idea and validating whether or not a certain business is worth pursuing. If our assumptions about that idea, our guesses about the idea are right, we call that validating our assumptions. And it's part of the customer discovery process that we are attempting to identify whether or not we were right in our guesses, right? Did we pick the right group of early adopters? And I'll be posting other videos on this process as well. You know, how we actually go about choosing who to interview is one of the next videos that I have there for you. So a little bit more about the process in general. You can look at that here. We're again in this very first stage, and the reason why we look at this so early on is it's one of the riskiest assumptions that we can possibly make. Are we building this business for the right people? Are we building something that they actually want? You can't just build a business for yourself, right? It's wonderful that you're experiencing that problem, but what we need to find out is, are other people experiencing that problem as well? And what are they feeling when they experience that problem? What kind of emotions are they going through? These are all part of that process of testing those assumptions. I'm going the wrong way. All right, moving forward. So right now, since we are in social isolation or we're practicing social distancing, and most of us are quarantined or sequestered, we can't go out and conduct our interviews face-to-face, and that's okay. We can still move forward in entrepreneurship. We know that some of the biggest companies were started during times of economic crisis, and the lean methodology is one of, if not, no, it is the best, most systematic approach we can take to starting a company, and it gives us the highest probability of actually succeeding and not falling on our faces and failing. Right? So the way that we do this now under the sequestration orders are we use our networks. We use our LinkedIn, we find connections, we make sure that our LinkedIn profile is complete, and we connect with one another, and we ask people on LinkedIn to do interviews with us. Right? We ask them to fill out forms. We ask them for Zoom meetings, for virtual meetings. When you're relying on your network so heavily, it's so important that you take advantage of reciprocity. By that I mean, if somebody does something for you, you do something for somebody else. A rule of thumb that I like to follow is, don't ask for something without offering something. And if you do that, you have a much better chance of being successful and getting all the data that you need to, you know, for your lean startup process and for your customer discovery interviews. So one of the big things we're trying to do is identify who are the early adopters. So let's make sure we understand what we mean by early adopters, because this term is used a number of different ways. And sometimes when I say this term early adopters, people think that I mean the kind of people who are standing outside of the Apple store to get the latest gadget. And that's true. I mean, those are early adopters. They're just not who we mean by early adopters in entrepreneurship. In entrepreneurship, early adopters are the very first customers for a new product or service. These are the ones who are at the moment, right now, experiencing a problem that that you are likely going to solve, or you are assuming, your assumption is that you'll be able to solve it, and we'll validate that assumption through our discovery process. So the premise on which the discovery process is made is that customers don't buy products or services, but customers buy solutions to problems that they're experiencing and that are causing them pain, significant pain in their lives. And it doesn't have to be physical pain, but it does have to be pain, emotional pain, or just something that is a true significant problem in their lives. If you can cure that pain point for a customer, then you have a business worth pursuing, especially if and there's enough customers who are experiencing that pain point, if that pain point is very strong, and if they have the money to pay for it, or there's money to be made in it. Right? So we always define early adopters in entrepreneurship in relationship to a problem. And we look at this, this curve here is called the Diffusion of Innovation Curve. Diffusion of Innovation Curve is a term that means how many people have adopted the use of this product at a certain point in time of the life cycle of the product or service. Okay, so when we talk about the different terms, the early adopters and early majority, late majority, and laggards, we're talking about them in relation to your problem, to the problem. So they fall under one of four broad characteristics, or one classifications, starting with the laggards. And the laggards are, so if you look at here along this timeline, that's a timeline, right? That's time. And they're way at the end of the time continuum. So they don't adopt the use of your product until the very end of the product's life cycle. Now, I wanted to use an example because I thought it'd be easier to explain the concept if we had an example. And so since we are now, on shelter at home orders because of COVID-19, I thought that I would use an example of an actual business idea that we were actually thinking about pursuing in the Rec Innovation Lab. And it happened when we first started to get the, we first started to get news of the coronavirus being spread, and we tried to buy hand sanitizer, and we couldn't find it anywhere. And we were still meeting at the center at that point. It was before we were told, or before we decided to cancel the classes. And we wanted hand sanitizer, but we couldn't buy it. And so we thought, well, let's see if we can make some, right? So we talked to people in our center who are either nurses or friends with nurses. And then we talked to a couple other people in the medical profession and asked about what we could use in lieu of store-bought sanitizer. And alcohol was one thing that came up that was still available, readily available at that point. And the alcohol was, it killed the germs without having to necessitate washing our hands if we couldn't, get to a place where we could wash our hands. And it just, it was a way that we could give an extra layer of protection, right? And so we were making our own here. And when I say we, it was us at the Regional Entrepreneurship Center, the Rec Innovation Lab, myself and a group of the entrepreneurs who were there when we first started. And we decided, let's test this as a business idea, right? Let's make these little bottles of spray hand sanitizer, and we'll sell them to others, because we have access to alcohol when other people don't, because Well, one of my friends, he has a distillery that they've now, instead of making nice whiskey, they're making basically rubbing alcohol, hand sanitizer. And so we have access to lots and lots and lots of this, so we can sell this for inexpensive, and we think that that's a problem. Other people can't get it. If we couldn't get it, other people can't get it, right? So we started talking to people. So under that assumption, let's say we're starting this company, and we're actually going to be creating these little hand sanitizers, the Rec Innovation hand sanitizers. A laggard would be people who don't have a problem and are not seeking a solution, but they do fall within that customer definition. They do meet all the other characteristics of the customer. So an example of that might be somebody who, let's say they themselves have access to as much hand sanitizer as they need, right? So there's no problem for them. They have all the hand sanitizer they want. So they're not out there looking for a solution. There's no problem for them. I mean, they still are the kind of people who would be using it, who would need it, but yeah. Or perhaps they don't have a problem because they are constantly washing their hands. Maybe they don't ever need to be where they would not be able to wash their hands, right? So they're not looking for it. Now, the late majority, they do have the problem, but they don't know they have the problem, okay? And they don't know they have the problem because, well, for a number of different reasons. You know, maybe maybe they aren't even aware that the problem exists, but we can see that they have a problem. So for example, if we're thinking that our early adopters are you know, students and teachers and people who are out in public in settings where they could have lots of germs around them and can't wash their hands all the time, maybe these are the people who don't think that it's really that necessary to be washing their hands or to be spraying hand sanitizer on, and they don't really realize that it's that serious, and they think that they'll be fine without washing their hands. You know, we can see they have a problem. We know that once we convince them that they have a problem, they'll be our customers. Now, the early majority, they have a problem. They know they have the problem, but they're not really seeking the solution for the problem. And this could be because they just maybe don't realize that it's such a big deal, that they know, I mean, they know it's a problem, but they don't know it's that big of a problem. This was at the beginning of the coronavirus. A lot of people, well, is it really that serious? Are people really getting sick? Before they knew, right? So they just needed to be convinced. So that's often the case with that, with those early majority. They are the ones that we want to capture, and we won't ever capture them if we cannot first capture the early adopters. So the early majority are the ones who will get us to usually to be a very, very profitable company. I mean, look, it's a huge portion of the overall market. We're never going to get them if we don't get those first early adopters, because those are usually the ones who convince the early majority. It's not us, right? It's the early adopters. So the early adopters, they have the problem. They know they have the problem. They're out there looking for a solution. They're the ones who are going to Costco and they're going on Amazon and everywhere, just like, where is the hand sanitizer? Where can I find more of this? And I can't find it anywhere. And as soon as I find it, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to bring it in. Those are the people who would be our early adopters. So have the problem, they know they have the problem, they're actively seeking a solution, right? So it's always in relation to the problem. And when you're out there and you're doing your problem interviews, then you'll want to, I mean, this is how you'll identify whether or not the people are your early adopters or not, or your majority, either early or late, or the laggards, or outside of the entire customer potential target market, right? So that's how you identify them in relation to the problem. And you also observe the behaviors that they exhibit when they are seeking that solution, right? Or a solution to that problem. What are they doing? What are they doing when they're trying to get the problem solved, right? And how are they solving it now? I'll talk about the details of what you specifically ask for in your problem interviews in the next video, because I already made this video too long. And then I'll also share with you a couple other videos I'm thinking. We'll definitely share with you the video on how you can determine which people to interview, which of the many different types of people could potentially be in your target market. But I think we might just leave it there. I don't want to go too much further for you. I feel like that's enough. We've gone far enough on this video. It's long enough. I'll put more videos and I'll share more about the process. There's so much that we can talk about, but I know for myself, I've always had a hard time. Once you know what an early adopter is, it's how do we know which ones to interview, and then what do we ask them? So I'll put those 2 videos up there for you next, so you can get started on those. All right, have a great afternoon, and I will see you all soon over our virtual meetings. Take care. Bye.